All right, so let me sort of restart. Not the whole thing, but okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight for Parshas Vayechi, which is the last parsha in Bereshis. We based on, like I just said, we a little bit missed, I think, discussing a lot of Parshas Bereshis because of what's going on the last 2 months. So, but we'll get the last parsha in, and then next week we'll pick up with Shmos. What I want to talk about tonight is a sort of basic question. It bothers me every year, and I'm never sure exactly what to say about it. And I don't know if this is going to totally resolve it, but at least it will get us there. It will get us there somewhat. It's what some of the key commentators have to say about this. We talk the key, the cornerstone of this week's parsha. The key thing that we talk about in Vayechi are the blessings that Yaakov gives his sons. Right? We always talk about the brachas of Yaakov, Yaakov's brachas. So, okay, now on some level, we'll see that there is some evidence for that. But let's just start with a very basic question, which is that many of these don't seem like blessings. Okay, a lot of them seem more along the lines of what we would call prophecies, right? Let's say, what's a blessing? This morning, I guess apparently Sfardim like to get a bracha from the father of a kid who had a bris, and even more so from the sandak. All right, so people were asking me for brachas. All right, so what's a bracha? Usually, a bracha is, I don't know, if someone needs something, so you say, yeah, I hope you'll get whatever you need, right? I hope you'll have good health. A bracha is along those lines. Yaakov's brachas, these things that we call Yaakov's brachas, are not primarily along those lines. He doesn't say to his boys, I hope I hope you win the lottery, or I hope you have a healthy life. He doesn't say that. He gives them more what we would call predictions, right? He talks about prophetic types of things, which we'll get into a little bit, some examples of this. So there seems to be a misnomer here that we're calling them Yaakov's brachas, but when in fact they seem to be something a little bit different. So in fact, the commentators are aware of this, and I'll tell you where the problem starts. Okay, if we read in the Torah, we'll see that there's a big problem with the way the Torah describes what's going on over here. At the beginning of chapter 49, the brachas are in chapter 49. At the beginning of chapter 49, Yaakov tells his sons, Vayikra Yaakov al banav. This is Yaakov's deathbed scene. He knows that he's about to die. He calls his sons, Vayomer he asvu va'agida lachem es asher yikra eschem ba'achris hayamim. He says, gather around, and I'm going to tell you what's going to happen to you in the future, in the end of days. That's how Yaakov presents the story. Okay, so here the Torah introduces this whole story, and it says nothing about a blessing. It says that Yaakov tells them that he's going to tell them what's going to happen in the end of days. So that's what we would call a prophecy. That's a very, very clear statement that Yaakov is indicating to them that he is going to give them a prophecy. The essence of the definition of a prophecy is some indication, some advance warning of what's going to happen in the future. So that's how the Torah introduces this. It says absolutely nothing about a blessing. So why do we all think that they're blessings, right? Why do we all call them blessings? If you ask anyone, what does Yaakov do in this week's parsha? They'll say he blesses his children. So if we go to the end of the chapter, okay, this is verse 28. So he's gone through all 12 sons. He goes through each of his sons individually. And then he says the following: Kol Ela Shivtei Yisrael Shnei Masar. These are the 12 tribes of Israel. Vizos Asher Diber Lahem Avihem. This is what their father spoke to them. Vayivarech Osam, and he blessed them. Ish Asher Kebirchaso Beirach Osam. Each son got blessed according to his own blessing. Each one got a blessing that was befitting him. Each son got a blessing that was personalized. So here the Torah switches the phrase, and suddenly it starts talking about the blessing. So this is the problem that the commentators are aware of. On the one hand, when the Torah introduces the whole issue, it says nothing about a blessing. It says that Yaakov is going to tell them the future. But then at the end of the whole thing, after he's given them each their, whatever it is, he's told them each something. So then the Torah starts calling it the blessing that he gave each of them. So that's the question that the commentators are bothered by. Was this a blessing or was it a prophecy? What are we dealing with over here? And again, as I said at the beginning, when you read through these, what he tells them, they do not seem like classical blessings. They seem more like prophecies. So what I want to do right now is I want to go through three different approaches to this question. The first two are the extremes. So either it was a blessing or it was a prophecy. And then the third approach is Rashi. And when we see how Rashi is fitting into these other commentators, we're going to see that Rashi is doing something brilliant. Okay, if you only read the Rashi on this week's Parsha, you will miss. It's a famous Rashi. When I tell it to you, you'll probably recognize it because it's a very well-known Rashi. But if you only read Rashi in a vacuum, you'll miss a lot of what he's trying to do. Once we see it in the context of this whole discussion, so then we're going to see that Rashi is doing something unbelievably brilliant. So it's really going to change and enhance our understanding of what Rashi is doing. So let's begin with the two extremes. The simplest approach, and there are commentators who say this, but I think if you ask most people on the street who have read the Torah or who have a Jewish education, if you would ask them how they understand this, this is basically what they would tell you. I think there's a similar approach in the Orach Chaim in his commentary. So there are commentators that adopt this way of thinking about it. Approach number one is that these were blessings. Yaakov blessed his sons. Now, why does the Torah call them prophecies then? If they're blessings, why is the Torah saying that he's going to tell them what happens in the future? So the answer is very simple, that Yaakov's blessings are different than, let's say, the kinds of blessings that you or I would give. Right? Like I said before, people were asking me for blessings today. So what kind of blessing can I give them? I don't know what they need. I don't have any special insight into them. So I'd say to them, what do you need? And then try to give them a blessing for it. But there was nothing special. There was no, any blessing is nice, but there was no prophetic power to my blessing, which is how most of us give blessings. If we know the person, we can maybe guess what they want. If we don't know them, so then we just make something up generically. But there's no prophetic element really to our blessings. Yaakov, on the other hand, he's not just giving a random generic blessing. Yaakov's blessings are a prophetic type of blessing, which means that Yaakov has tremendous insight. Yaakov is a very smart person, and these were his sons, so he knew them very, very well. And we've read all about Yaakov's life. He had a lot of life experience. He was very sharp. He was very shrewd. So Yaakov's blessings are of a higher caliber than most blessings, which is why they're recorded in the Torah. A regular blessing is not going to be recorded for all time, but a special blessing of Yaakov deserves to be recorded. So that's what the Torah means, that Yaakov has this special prophetic ability. And not only his prophetic ability is not only that he can read people very well, but he also knows the future because he's a prophet. So he's able to weave into his blessings things about what are going to happen in the future. So for example, in Shimon and Levi's blessing, he talks about a bad descendant of theirs, which is Korach. Korach comes from the tribe of Levi. So Yaakov talks about he references Korach, according to Rashi. Obviously, it's not in the Torah, but if you look in Rashi's commentary throughout the blessings, so you'll find all sorts of references to all sorts of later events in Jewish history. So in the blessing of Levi, he references his great-great-grandson, Korach. In the blessing of Yehuda, he references the royalty, the royal family of David HaMelech comes from Yehuda. So he references David, he references Shlomo, he references Mashiach, he references the whole royalty of the Jewish people in the blessing of Yehuda. He references Shimshon, the great, the powerful, the mightiest guy who ever lived. Shimshon, he references. He references Benos Tzalavcha, the daughters who wanted to inherit land in Israel. He references all about their portions in Israel. What kind of produce, whether they're going to have olives or wine or milk, what kind of stuff they're going to produce, what businesses they're going to be in, that Binyamin is going to have the Beis Hamikdash, all sorts of stuff is referenced in these blessings. That's hundreds of years in the future. So basically, Yaakov is endowed with this special ability to see into the future, and based on that, he's able to tailor each of these blessings so that it's perfectly appropriate for the person that he's giving this blessing to. So that's number one way to understand what Yaakov is doing. So that's why the Torah says that Yaakov is going to tell them the future. He's not just telling them the future, he's giving them a blessing, which is what the Torah says at the end, that these were blessings, but they're not just random or generic blessings. They are tailor-made for the tribe, and it's not just for this one son that he's talking to. He's talking to this future descendants of each tribe. The whole point of this parsha really is that each tribe has their own strengths and weaknesses, and all together, the 12 tribes make up the Jewish people. So the Jewish people is a collection of all these different people, all these different strengths and weaknesses working together, and together we have a great nation. So Yaakov is talking to each tribe at the essence of who they are, and he's giving them some insight into what the best way they could go forward in the future is. And he also blesses them by hoping and praying that the things are going to be as good as possible for each tribe. So that's the first way to understand whether these are prophecies or blessings. And the answer is that they are prophetic blessings. Now, let me go to option number 2, which is on the other extreme, that these are not blessings at all. They're prophecies. And this comes from the Ibn Ezra. He makes a very interesting comment, and I'm going to read you what he says. Okay, because the Ibn Ezra thinks that most of us are making a mistake. He says the following. He says, Diber hanavi la'asid. Yaakov is speaking about the future. So these are not blessings. These are prophecies. V'tohu ha'omrim shehem brachos. And the people who say that they're brachas are mistaken. So very interesting. Right, like I said at the beginning, we always talk about Yaakov's brachas. And the Ibn Ezra says that this is totally wrong. These are not brachas. This is a total mistake. Now, he explains to us, why are people making this mistake? Right? Why are so many people making the mistake of thinking that these are blessings when they're not? So says the Ibn Ezra, the mistake is the mistake is because at the end of the whole story, it says vayivarech osam. It uses the word bracha, vayivarech. So that's why everyone's making this mistake, and they think that these are brachas, because in verse 28 it uses the phrase vayivarech osam, that he blessed them. Says the Ibn Ezra, but this is totally wrong. It's a mistake. These are not blessings. They are prophecies, which is how the Torah said them to begin with, that Yaakov is going to tell them the future. And that's in fact what he does. Like I said, if you look through Rashi's commentary, it's constantly referring to future events. So according to the Ibn Ezra, these are not blessings that Yaakov is giving his children, but these are prophecies about what's going to happen to them in the future. And the Ibn Ezra has a great argument. I think this is a very important argument that he has. He says, how could these have been blessings? Because if you look at the blessings, not only are they not really blessings in the normal sense of the word, but the first 3 brothers, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, they don't even get a positive message. They get told very negative things. Reuven gets told, the Torah references that Reuven was slept with his father's wife, Bilhah. The rabbis say that it doesn't mean literally. It just means that he messed with Yaakov's bed. He moved Yaakov's bed. So it doesn't mean that he actually literally was with his what do we call that? His stepmother, I guess. It doesn't mean it literally. But either way, Yaakov is very upset about this. He thinks that Reuven should not have meddled, and Yaakov is very upset about that. And Shimon and Levi, he gets upset that they sold Yosef, that they killed Shechem. And according to Rashi, that they sold Yosef. So Yaakov gets upset at the first three sons. He doesn't tell them anything nice. So how could you say that these are blessings when the first three sons get told very negative things? And this is a problem that many of the commentators pick up on. How can it be that we're saying Yaakov blessed his sons, and the first three sons he says something negative to? And I'll even add something more. The problem is not only that Yaakov speaks sharply to the first three sons, he rebukes them. The problem is more deep-seated than that. Because as I just said, if Yaakov is blessing not just the sons, but the future tribes, so how could you say that 1/4 of the Jewish people, 3 of the tribes, did not get a blessing? Think about what that would mean. It would mean that 1/4 of Jews walking around did not get blessed by Yaakov. Now, obviously, we believe that all the tribes are equal. All the tribes are necessary. We would never say that the tribes of Reuven, Shimon, and Levi are unnecessary tribes. In fact, the tribe of Levi gets treated extra special. So it's clear that all the tribes are important. They're all crucial to the Jewish people. In fact, there is a promise. I think Rashi mentions this. There's a promise that God makes that no tribe will ever completely disappear. There have to always be members of all 12 tribes. There can never be a total erasing of one tribe. So if all the tribes are important, how could it be that 3 of the tribes don't get a blessing? So that's the issue that the Ibn Ezra raises. Says the Ibn Ezra, we have to conclude from here that these were not blessings. They were simply prophecies about the future. And it doesn't really matter if they were negative or positive. Some prophecies are negative and some prophecies are positive. That's it. But these are not blessings. So why then does the Torah at the end say Vayivarech Osam, that he blessed them? Right? Why is it using that word if these were not blessings? Says the Ibn Ezra, and this is a very important interpretation. Okay, I think most people are not going to be familiar with this. I'd be surprised if anyone's familiar with this. Says the Ibn Ezra, what the Torah means to say in verse 28 is not that Yaakov blessed them. He means to say the following. 2 things happened. V'zos asher diber lahem avihem. This is what their father told them. So that's in reference to what we just read. Their father told them all these prophecies. And then, subsequent to that, Vayivarech Osam, he then blessed them, and the Torah doesn't tell us what the blessings were. So after he gave them all these predictions and insights into the future, that's number 1. That's Asher Diber Lahem. That's what Yaakov spoke to them. That's not a blessing. And then he blessed them. But the Torah doesn't tell us the blessing. The blessing was like we would expect. He said, I hope you have a good life. I hope you're healthy, whatever it is. But the Torah does not tell us the blessings that he gave them. So the blessings that are referenced, according to the Ibn Ezra, are something entirely different, which have not been elaborated on in the Torah. Okay, so those are the first 2 explanations. Again, explanation number 1 is that these are all prophetic blessings. And explanation number 2 is that these are prophecies about the future, but they're not a blessing. Now, let me go to Rashi. Rashi tells us something. Once we have this in place, you're going to see this Rashi in a whole new light. Rashi quotes from the Gemara a very interesting tradition. According to Rashi, Yaakov wanted to tell them about the Kates. He wanted to reveal the end of days, which is commonly understood to mean that he wanted to tell them about Mashiach's coming. So he wanted to tell them about how Mashiach, the process of Mashiach coming and when he would come. He wanted to tell them the future. So when the Torah introduces this section, it says that when Yaakov says, gather around, I'm going to tell you the future, he doesn't mean the future like the little things he tells them after this, about Korach and Bnos Tzalafchad and Shimshon and David. He doesn't mean little things. He means that he's going to tell them the most pivotal question that we all want to know, which is the end of days of Mashiach. That's what Yaakov's original plan was. But God made him forget everything that he knew about this. So says Rashi, So here Yaakov is, it's like if you do public speaking, right? You could imagine this. You have a speech prepared, you get up and you forget the whole speech. So you just start, I don't know, babbling along because you don't know what you're supposed to say. Like I once wrote something. I once wrote my bullet points down in pencil, and I didn't realize that when you have like a bright light on top, you can't read a pencil. You could try it. So I'm standing up there. I can't read anything, right? So you just start babbling. So okay, that's what happened with Yaakov. He just babbling at this point because he the plan, what he wanted to tell them, wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. So he just told them other things. So according to Rashi, this is very important. The prophecies in this week's parsha are the second tier of prophecies. They're not really great prophecies. They're just minor prophecies that Yaakov knew. But Yaakov knew much better information. He knew about the ultimate redemption of Mashiach. But he wasn't able to tell it to them because God wouldn't let him say it. He forgot it. So instead of giving them the full prophecy, he gave them these minor prophecies. Okay, very interesting. So what is Rashi trying to do over here? Rashi's trying to say something in the middle. He's trying to address this problem. Were these prophecies or were these blessings? And again, we said at the beginning of the story, at the beginning of chapter 49, it says that they're prophecies, the future. Yaakov says, I'm going to reveal the future. Then at the end of the whole thing, it says that he blessed them. So what happened? Why is the Torah first describing it as a revelation of the future? And then at the end, it says he blessed them. So the answer, according to Rashi, is that the plan shifted in the middle. Originally, Yaakov wanted to reveal the future. He didn't want to give them any blessings. He wanted to tell them when Mashiach was going to come. He wanted to reveal the future. So that's why the Torah introduces the whole story with this grand proclamation that Yaakov says, gather around, and I'm going to reveal the future. But then it didn't happen because he wasn't able to. So then he shifted into giving them what we called prophetic blessings. So that's why the whole story went a totally different way. That's why Yaakov starts talking to each one individually, and he gives them each a prophetic blessing. So that's why at the end of the story, it's referred to as blessings. This is really just a brilliant commentary from Rashi. Like I said, I don't think we would have been able to appreciate this without seeing some of the context and some of the problems that Rashi's trying to answer. But once you see the big problem in the story, then you see what Rashi's trying to take care of. Now, let me just share one more insight from Rashi, because this is also, I think, a very beautiful insight. Again, the big problem we said from the Ibn Ezra raises is how can you say these are blessings when the first three brothers did not get blessings? They got rebuked. So it's not fair. Right? It's not fair that Reuven, Shimon, and Levi don't get a blessing. And it's not fair for all their descendants that they don't get a blessing. So Rashi again says something very interesting. It's similar to the Ibn Ezra, but it's different. It fits in with Rashi's view. Rashi says that what happened was the following. When the Torah says at the end of the story, Zos asher diber lahem avihem, this is what their father said. So that's the end of the story, right? This is what their father said. He blessed 9 of them, and he rebuked 3 of them. Then vayivarech osam, then he blessed them. You know who that's referring to? Only the first 3 brothers. He gave the first 3 brothers a blessing now because they hadn't gotten one earlier. So I guess you could almost say the whole story was in flux. First, Yaakov wanted to reveal the ending, but that didn't happen. Then the first 3 sons come over to him, and he rebukes them. Then I guess he rethought the story. I don't know if this is exactly how it happened, but maybe he rethought this plan, and he decided, you know what? I don't want to rebuke my sons on my deathbed. So he blesses the next 9. But now he realizes that the first 3 didn't get blessed. So he goes back and he blesses the first 3. So Vayivarech Osam is again not talking about all the brothers. It's only talking about the first 3 because they had not gotten a blessing yet. So it wasn't fair to them. So he blessed those 3 brothers. And then Rashi adds, Ish asher kabir chaso, each person got his own bracha. which is what we said. Each person got a personalized bracha. These were not just generic brachas that you could have given to any brother, but they were personalized brachas for each brother. And then Beirach Osam, it then says that he blessed them all. So Rashi says very interestingly, it means that the blessings of each brother applied to all of the brothers. Now, obviously not equally, right? Let's say Yaakov blessed Yehuda with royalty. So all the brothers are not equally royal. Yehuda is mostly the royal family, but each of the brothers got some element of the blessing of all the other brothers. So all 12 brothers shared somewhat in all of the blessings, which is like we said, the Jewish people is a combination of all 12 tribes. And you couldn't have the Jewish people without the strengths of all 12 tribes. So that's how Rashi explains what's going on at the end, that the Torah is telling us a few things. First of all, Yaakov rebuked the older three. And even though he blessed them, but he didn't regret the rebuke. It's not that Yaakov's saying, I regret what I told you, I shouldn't have said that. No, he stuck with his rebuke, but they were his sons. They were pious. He loved them. So he gave them their own blessing. Then the Torah says that each blessing was personalized for each brother. And then the Torah says that each blessing also applied in smaller proportions to all the other brothers. So every Jew, I guess, has an element of all the blessings. So according to Rashi, very interestingly, there's basically three things going on at the end of the whole story. There's the personalized message that each brother gets, which is a description of their strengths and some of their future. And that could be good or bad. Then there's a blessing that the brothers that got rebuked then get a blessing, and then the third element is that all the blessings of each one apply somewhat to all of them. So that's the okay. So that's the those are some of the ways to make sense of what's going on. Again, like we said, that there's a big problem. We talk about Yaakov's brachas, but the problem is, first of all, he tells them that he's going to reveal the future originally, not that he's going to give them a bracha. And the second, these don't read like brachas. And third, the first three get rebuked. They don't even get brachas. So we tried to make sense of some of these problems. And sorry. And we've seen how Rashi has a very beautiful, very brilliant explanation for this. All right, let me pause that.